Hey guys, Furum here, and this is the first of two videos I will be making about the 1679 Vulcan versus all the Apollo Intensas in multiplayer. This tune has served me well for a very long time, and even after the Intensa has come, it is not as good, but it is still extremely good. So the tune is 5504 and 5055 in Pro Kits. This gives me a rank of 1679. I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with this tune, and I believe a lot of you probably have this tune as well. So the races in this video and the next one are all in order, and they are just some of the closest and most intense races that I have had against the new Apollo Intensa. So, I will be speaking a little bit about the Vulcan versus Intensa on performance and other things like that, just to give you guys a good idea of how they should perform next to each other in multiplayer. So, the Intensa has a slightly higher top speed around this rank, from 3 to 5 miles per hour. Now, the Vulcan with this tune speeds up faster than the Apollo Intensas that have not put much onto acceleration, but my Apollo Intensa tune, 4504, 5055, starts up faster than the fastest starting up Vulcan. So, faster than the 1679 Vulcan tune. Now, I will be making a video about the Apollo IE in multiplayer at a rank of 1610, which is 0504 5050, the tune that I won it at if you watched my Winning the Apollo IE video. I've already recorded a bunch of races with that 1610 tune, as well as my newly upgraded 1684 tune, so in the coming days, be looking out for those. Now, here I took the long route because I did not do the hoop-de-doo thingies very well, but thankfully I was able to get ahead of him around the turns and still be in first place. So I think what you'll see in this video about the 1679 Vulcan and my next one as well, part 2, is that the Vulcan is not terribly inferior to the Apollo Intensa Emozione, just inferior enough so that, assuming equal skill, if no drivers make mistakes, the Apollo Intensas are going to win pretty much all of the time. But as you will also see, the 1679 Vulcan can beat a lot of lower Apollo Intensa Emoziones as well as higher ones, as you can see here. It really just depends on the drivers and the specific tunes. So this past race and the current one are examples of races against Apollo Intensa Emoziones that have not upgraded acceleration much, and thus I'm able to shoot ahead of them at the start. That is one reason, again, I'm so glad that I did this 1679 Vulcan tune, because acceleration is so important at this rank, and you can get ahead of these Apollos at the beginning, and I've found that when you can get ahead in the beginning, it gives you more confidence that you're actually going to win, rather than having slower acceleration and slightly faster speed and always have to catch up. I found that at this rank, upgrading acceleration a good bit to like 4 or 5 is pretty important on a lot of cars, even if you do have to sacrifice a couple of miles per hour for it, because, like, in my 1684 Apollo Intensa Emozione with 4 on acceleration, I've pretty much started up faster than every single other Apollo Intensa Emozione that I have seen, and the few races that I didn't come in first are ones that I made a mistake on. So far, I haven't had a single occurrence of a faster Apollo actually catching up and passing me. So in this race, the Apollo caught up around the final turns because of that weird barrel issue, and hey look, James P., a fellow Purple Team member, was in this race as well. So now we have our third race, which is on Barcelona against an Apollo IE that is ranked about 50 below us. And you will see that his speed is approximately equal to me, and I start up slightly faster. This is why, if you do not win the Apollo and you have a 1679 Vulcan or some other Vulcan tune around this rank, it's important that you risk points. Stay at 100% risk as long as you can, because then you will get a lot of Apollos that are tuned around the same rank as he is. He is a 1623, I believe, which is over 50 below, as I said, and as you can see, he is not catching up, and he will not, because he is not any faster. Another reason I wanted to make this video is to give some people hope that did not manage to win the Intensa, because while I know a whole lot of people did, a whole lot of people didn't too, because the fourth lap was just really grueling and people ran out of tokens and stuff like that. So yeah, if you did not manage to win it, the Vulcan is still the second best multiplayer car in the game, and you can pull out a lot of wins against the Apollos. It will be tough, but if you drive really well, you can do it, as you can see here. So now we have a race on Munich against another Vulcan as well as two Apollo IEs. So this is an example of two IEs that have tuned acceleration more and thus were able to shoot ahead at the beginning. However, I did a speed trick that they did not, and thus I was able to get ahead of them and make it down the curve faster. Now, one of them did manage to shoot past because of his better acceleration. That is one thing that you may notice in multiplayer. While it may not be that easy to see, it can make the difference in some cases. Cars that have faster acceleration excel more on tracks that are twisty because drifting around the turns slows you down. And with faster acceleration, you can get up to your maximum speed quicker after the turns. A pretty drastic example of this, I guess, would be the SLK versus the R8 Special Edition on Azure Coast. Now, the SLK does have pretty bad drifting, but as you'll see if you watched my SE Showdown video that I uploaded a few days ago, the main reason that the SLK fell so far behind the R8 SE was not because of bad drifting or hitting the sides, but because it could not accelerate fast enough in between the S-curves to be able to take the next S-curves with the most speed. And so it just kept getting slower and slower, whereas the R8 SE, with its extremely good acceleration, was able to get up to maximum speed in between all the S-curves and get around them just fine. Okay, so here we have this other Intensa just close behind us. He is faster. He is a rank 1708. I'm not sure what that tune is, but it's definitely a faster car, but because he went a long way on the first lap, we did manage to beat him. As you can see, if the Apollo drivers make any kind of little mistake like going a long way or whatever, the Vulcan still has a pretty good chance of beating him. Okay, now we have a good example of a race against the Apollo IE that is basically typical. What happens, the Apollo IE starts up slightly faster, gets ahead at the beginning, and pretty much just pulls ahead slowly throughout the entire race. And as I said earlier, assuming equal skill, this is what is going to happen. If you get in a race with somebody like this, he is a slightly higher Apollo IE, there's really not much chance that you're going to be able to beat him, unless he makes a mistake or takes the turns badly or something like that. But something I've learned is don't underestimate and don't overestimate your opponent. So don't underestimate them by thinking that they'll always wreck and you can catch up to them, or that they'll always make mistakes and stuff. No, that is going to lead to plenty of races where you think you're going to come in first, and you don't, because, wow, the other guy didn't make any mistakes. But also don't overestimate them in the fact that they'll never make mistakes, because they do. Even the most skilled drivers make mistakes sometimes. He didn't take the final turn that well, and thus I was able to catch up to him, but because of his better acceleration, he sped up and reached the finish line before me, and he reached champion in that race. Interestingly enough, you can reach champion at a rank of 1999. You don't actually have to make it to 2000, which is a little weird, and I'm not exactly sure why they did that, but it is pretty interesting. So this race is one of the greatest comebacks I think I have ever seen. So here, this Vulcan pushes me off, and I wreck, going all the way back into last position. It was only one lap on Dubai, and I was seriously considering leaving the race, but I decided, you know what? Anything can happen, they can make mistakes. And two of them did. And then the first one did as well. And because he could not get up to speed around these turns, I caught up to him and pushed him against the side and knocked him down, thus bringing me from 4th to 1st in like 30 seconds. You see, guys? Anything can happen. Unfortunately, that can also go the other direction, meaning that you can be in first and then you make a mistake and everything goes haywire from there. But hey, let's focus on the positive side of things. In this race, we beat another Vulcan, a Hystera GT, and Apollo Intensa Emozione, all at almost exactly the same rank, all in the 1670 to 1680 range, which doesn't happen very often with 4 people in a race, but it was quite interesting. So one thing I found as I tested the Vulcan more and more is that I was coming up against more Apollos that were able to accelerate faster than me. When I began using the Vulcan at first, when the Apollo came out, I was able to accelerate faster than pretty much all of them. I think that was because so many people had originally found tunes for the Intensa that were very speed-based and not acceleration-based. But as people learned that acceleration is extremely important around this range, people started, well, upgrading acceleration more. And that is why I increasingly found it difficult to pull ahead in the beginning with my Vulcan, and found it much more necessary to catch up to them later by them either making a mistake or by me taking the turns better or something like that. But much of the time, these drivers were just getting better and better, and I wasn't able to beat them. However, there were still plenty of times when I did. So here we're coming up to the end of this Crystal Lake race, just behind one Apollo, but ahead of one other one. So the one we beat was 1696, the one that beat us was a 1687. That tune is 55055050. Which I honestly don't recommend because I believe it has slower speed than the 1684 tune that I came up with approximately the same acceleration. And it is at a higher rank. So yes, if you want to get a good acceleration-based tune for the Apollo, leave your nitro at 4 and upgrade exhaust and acceleration. Now, if you don't really care as much about acceleration and you want a slightly more top speed oriented one, that's when you upgrade nitro to 5, exhaust to 5, and don't do much at all to acceleration. Now, obviously, playstyles will vary, and I know, and you guys know that I'm of the opinion that acceleration is so extremely important, but I've seen people that have had very good results in multiplayer with more top speed oriented ones, like Elite Force and one other guy had theirs at 1689, which is 0505 5355, I believe, and they didn't accelerate very quickly, and yet they were able to catch up and pass cars later because of their much faster speed. I find the problem with that to be, though, that those kinds of tunes tend to get knocked down at the beginning a fairly good portion of the time by the ones that accelerate faster. And also they have to play catch-up, which may be quite difficult on a one-lap race on a short track where you just have a couple miles per hour advantage and the other car sped ahead of you at the beginning. So that and other reasons that I have said are why I think it is very important to upgrade acceleration a good bit around this rank. So, in this race, we beat a 1666 Apollo Intensa Emozione, as well as a Max Pro R8 e-tron Special Edition, and an Apollo IE that disconnected. So, in this race, we have only two other cars. They're both Apollo IEs, and they both accelerated at around the same speed as me. I believe the Apollos that accelerate at around the same speed have acceleration at 3 and exhaust pro'd. That is why I wanted to increase acceleration up to 4 instead of just 3, so I could speed ahead of all of them. A lot of people are not going to be upgrading acceleration to that point because the fourth one is a token upgrade. Now, those that have free upgrades in stock somewhere in collections will be able to do that just fine, but the majority of people I've found have left acceleration at 3. Now, with the Vulcan, on the other hand, pretty much everybody around this rank maxed acceleration, because it only increased the rank by 19 points, and everybody knew that it was so extremely important. But because the acceleration upgrades on the Apollo increased the rank by so much more than the Vulcan, that is one reason there has been such a debate about them. So here we beat the Apollo Intensa Emozione, as well as two Vulcans. I thought there were two Apollos in that race. For the final race of the video, we have a battle between me and another Vulcan, as well as two Apollo IEs. So, some comparisons between the cars. Again, I've already talked about speed, I've already talked about acceleration. Nitro efficiency is more or less the same. Perfect on the Vulcan is better, but triple on the Apollo is better. The two cars drift more or less the same, but the Apollo does have noticeably better handling, as in steering capacity. The Vulcan does not turn that great unless you drift. So yeah, my general consensus is that the Apollo is a better car overall, but the Vulcan can still pull out some wins sometimes, depending on the driver, depending on the skill, depending on the track, depending on a whole lot of factors. I will be uploading part 2 of this video in the coming days, so 15 minutes more of Vulcan races against Apollo IEs, and I will also be uploading a few Apollo IE multiplayer videos. So, as we watch the Vulcan drive through Munich, goodbye Vulcan. Thank you for everything. You will forever remain in my heart. That sounds a little weird. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and consider subscribing for more Asphalt 8 content and Asphalt 9 content whenever that game releases. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!